can go ahead and start up.
I can do two at once. I can actually read and talk. It's amazing.
It is amazing. You talk an awful lot about rules being the same and coaching under the rules that are the same for everybody. Asking about Miami Dolphins announced today that there's going to be 13,000 people at their home opener. The NFL has kind of left the attendance for games this year up to the local situations. So the situation isn't the same for everybody. Would you like it to be the same standard across the league when it comes to having fans in the stands?
I would like to get our fans in the stands as fast as we possibly and as safely as we possibly can, Teresa. That's what my focus is on, what we can control here, making sure that our players are responsible, that they focus on getting ready for the season, and then when our fans can safely get back into the stadium, how we take care of them and provide a product that they can be proud
of. Jared?
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you about identity of the team. I know that it's really, really early, but without any preseason games, how do you judge if your offense is what's carrying your team right now or your defense is going to be the strength of your team? And how do you plan for Denver and Jacksonville and games like that when all you've got to go off is this limited practice?
So I think that when you look at identifying what your identity is, I think that it's got to be, for us, complementary in all three phases. I think there were times, and again, we don't talk necessarily about our efforts last year and think that that'll carry over, good or bad, but I think you can always just look at some history and say that there were different times at the season that the offense is going to be functioning at a high level, or maybe the defense is functioning at a high level. But you have to find the times where you're functioning on all three cylinders. So I don't think we want to be a team that just relies on one phase of our team. And so, we have to keep practicing against I think there's some great competitions, when you look at, let's say like AJ and Malcolm or Taylor and Harold on the edge, or, maybe KB guarding Janu. And just across the board, I think that those guys understand how to practice. They understand that they have to use these practice reps to push each other to get themselves ready and get our team ready for the season.
And on that note, on the complimentary side, as far as the kicking game is concerned, how hard is it for you to judge these two kickers when there's not going to be a live game rep for them to get before Denver and not go 100% with a rep before having to play a real game and them having what could be a game-winning kick as their first kick?
We'll have to continue to try to put some pressure on them in different situations. We're into our installation of 2-minute mode tonight. That'll be our night walkthrough tonight. We know how critical those situations are with the games that come down to points at the end of the half, limiting their points at the end of the half. And then also when those games come down like Kansas City did, or the Jets, or the Chargers game, when you get those situations that are in the fourth quarter inside of 2 minutes and inside of a minute, that we're operating and functioning in the most critical situations, we have to be at our best. And so that's where we'll transition to. And then as we do that, then we'll start to add some of those kick situations that hopefully Jared can give some of that pressure to those guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Gentry?
Yeah, hey, Mike. Wanted to ask about Corey Davis and, basically what all has he meant to your offense the last couple of years, and in terms of growth and improvement that you'd like to see, what do you think that next level, so to speak, looks like for him?
I think it just continuing to, I would say he's our best blocking wide receiver. I mean, he takes pride in it. And again, for us to be able to run the football, the receivers are going to have to block. Corey takes a lot of pride in it. He's physical. He's a good blocker. He's not out of control. He goes down there, rarely penalized in the run game, which sometimes you'll see receivers that just grab guys and as they get jerked, will hold. That hasn't been the case with Corey. And then I've really liked where he's been these last couple of days. It's just improvement in details, his speed into routes, identifying, match coverage or zone coverage. And I think he's improved. I think he's improved in this the short amount of time that he's been out there. So that's all we can ask of them.
Jim?
Mike, you gave a lot of veterans off. I guess how important is to keep those guys fresh in camp, and how big of an opportunity was it for the young guys? Did you kind of look at this as potentially like a preseason game for them today?
Yeah, a little bit. Just when I go through in my mind, and we've had a lot of those players that weren't out there today since the 23rd, and they've been out there every single day. They've done everything we've asked them to do. Guys like Corey and AJ and Rashawn, Jayon, Ben Jones, Amani Hooker. Those players have been, and I know Amani practiced today, but those players that I mentioned, they've been with us since the 23rd, and they've been, taking a lot of reps, and they take a lot of reps for us during the season. So I just felt like this was a good time to kind of reset that thing and, see where everybody else was and give those other guys a chance to be evaluated and really see what we could do when we put the ball down and work through some, first, second, and third down situations.
Emily?
Hey, Coach. So you talk about evaluation. How do you create those pressure situations in practice, not just with what Jared was saying about the kickers, but with everybody? I mean, we saw some tough tackling at the beginning of practice. How do you recreate that without preseason games?
Just like what you saw there today, Emily, I'm just trying to, obviously the health and safety of our team and our players is always paramount, but there's also a certain, amount of physicality that comes with this game. And I think as long as guys are being smart and not taking cheap shots at guys, we can play fast. And again, we try to make the tackling period live today, and just to give guys an opportunity to show us that they can do some things, or that maybe receivers or runners can break some tackles. And then we go in and sometimes we put the ball down, and then players just love that. They're always, as soon as we get done stretching, they're like yelling, let's put the ball down, let's put the ball down. Because they would much rather go play the game that they love than go through, individual 7-on-1-on-1, 7-on-7, special teams. They want to go play the game, which I can appreciate having been in their positions, but there's certain fundamentals that I think are important that we have to work as well.
Buck?
Hey, Coach. With giving the vets some time off today and trying to get the younger guys some reps, when you guys are formulating that plan with such a short off season, are you doing that internally with Todd and John? Or are you consulting with other coaches and other people that around the league? They're kind of doing similar things. How does that process work?
I think it's a very small fraternity, but it's also a very competitive league. So most of the stuff and conversations that we have are in-house with our coaches, with our training staff, with our strength staff. And again, just trying to identify the work that each guy needs specifically, and then collectively as a unit.
Chris Harris?
Mike, how's it going?
Great, Chris. How are you?
Just fine, thanks. My question is about Trevor. He's now 4 practices in, and how have you seen him kind of applying the playbook out on the field? And also, how can practices like today, with Ryan not being out there and him getting, 33% more of the reps, go a long way to helping him kind of figure things out?
Well, I'm not great at percentages, Chris, but I know that he got more reps today than he did yesterday or the day before. So, I think that it's coming along. I mean, there's some throws that I know he'd like to have back. He made a couple nice throws. Operationally, I thought it was okay. There was I think something there at the end of practice that probably could have been better, but I think there was most of the call sheet that we had given him was in, for today, for the call-up period. So, we have to clean some of those things up. And like you said, he's been here just 4 days or 4 practices. So, but I think he's a professional. I think he's played in the games. I think he understands how to prepare. I think his management of the offense has been, functional thus far.
Paul?
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Paul.
You've shown
what happened? You changed the intramural Rex Road jersey picture up?
Yeah, I thought he'd been mocked, but it's clear if you want him to wear a Titans jersey, he will, because he wore that because Izzo told him to. So if you tell him to, he'll wear a Titans jersey.
No, he won't. And I don't know, is a self-promotion. I'm the only one that sees your picture here that you have paulkaharski.com up there. Nobody else, like, this doesn't go out to all our fans. They don't see
No,
that.
it's for other Zoom stuff though.
Oh, okay.
You've shown in the past and again today, you're not big on the mental rep thing. You don't make your guys come out when they're resting and kind of go through practice. Can you give us any kind of vague sketch of what you prefer for them on a day like today? Like what are they doing in lieu of the mental reps at practice?
Well, they're going to watch the tape, and I think the guys go back and forth. The mental reps, just having been through it, myself is a tough ask. We're trying to, somebody told me there was just like some postural fatigue, like when you talk to these gurus, these sports science gurus, about postural fatigue. So when you're trying to give a guy some rest or a person some rest, there's some, some conditioning, some non-impact conditioning, some pull work, whatever it may be. Worked in the weight room a little bit. Also got some film work in, which I thought was important, that those guys on both sides of the ball were able to split up and kind of start the process of what that may look like when the season starts. So that's kind of what it looked like. But they were, they're working. And I think that's the thing that we've always stressed here, is that whatever the plan is, that everybody's working, whether you're rehabbing or whether you're getting a day off per se, or you're out there practicing, that you're working and trying to improve at something.
Out of the 21, did you want to run through the ones that are hurt?
I didn't know how many it was. I'm not sure.
John? John Lennon? Terry?
Mike, I'm gonna save myself here. Thought I had my mute off, but anyway, Mike, in terms of special teams, you've got like probably a handful of guys who are really kind of standouts in that regard. But I'm wondering kind of what the balance is. How many sort of special team standouts can you afford on a roster? If they can't do too much else, if that makes sense.
Traditionally, it's just been how much of an impact those guys have made. We'd always like them to be able to play another position and, or back up a couple spots. So we'll see. I think this year being able to get 48 to the game, may help and may impact that, John, with one of those guys being the 8th offensive lineman. That traditionally you would carry 7 on a 46-man roster. So that may have something to do with it. You could, that would be another place to gain a spot maybe.
One more random follow-up for you. From a guy who has done it in the past, what is it like for a non-traditional player to score a touchdown? And what kind of a surge does that give a team when a guy who doesn't usually score manages to score?
It's exciting. Again, you're nervous because it's not something that you normally do. And the surge, I think the momentum, it's obviously a touchdown, and it's a touchdown that's coming from a player that doesn't normally score it. So everybody, I enjoy the fact that everybody else is so excited for that person, whether that's Quiz or Dennis Kelly. I was going back, watching some situations, watching the end of games, and I watched the end of the Texans game when Derek, ended up getting the rushing title, and the pure joy that everybody involved in that and our football team had for him to get that individual award. And that to me was pretty cool. And so I think the guys are excited for other people when they have success, especially a lineman that may score a touchdown or somebody that we're not, traditionally targeting in the red zone.
Got Arthur waiting in the waiting room, but trying to roll through these last 3. Terry, real quick for you.
Mike, there was a time in one of the periods today where there was a young group of linemen out there, and you kind of encouraged Nate Davis to be a leader among that group. Is that something that, with a young player, who's a starter you'd like to see do that automatically in that situation? Or is that something that guys a lot of times just have to be encouraged to take that step?
Again, whether they're doing it, Terry, or not, I'm going to try to coach them every chance that I get. And so everybody sometimes needs reminded. You know, these are long practices. It's hot. You know, sometimes you need reminded. You know, that's why we coach, and that's my job, is to find the ones that, you know, that need some correcting. And again, we're going to coach everything we possibly can, because on Sundays or whenever we play, we're going to let them play, and we're going to fix the issues on the sideline. So whether that's a Dory today that made a good play, but, you know, needed a correction and said, yeah, maybe next time just be careful with this, you know, those are all opportunities to coach. And, you know, again, I appreciate that offensive line's effort. I appreciate Nate's willingness to improve each and every day and get in shape for the football season.
Steve Lehman.
Hey, Mike, thanks for doing this again. Last year, shortly after the offense really took off and kind of found a rhythm with Ryan, Adam Humphries went down and was basically out until the AFC Championship game. How much are you looking forward, and what can he bring, a fully healthy Adam Humphries, to what you guys can do offensively?
Again, he's come back. He does look healthy again. He looks quick. He's made some nice plays for us. I really just like his attitude. He's an instinctive player. I think he does help some of those younger guys. I think he is the veteran in that group. He's willing blocker. He made a great block on whatever would have been the third play, maybe, or second play yesterday. I'm not sure, when Derek had a nice run. You know, Hump's in there blocking, and that says a lot to me when guys are willing to do that, when receivers are willing to do that to make us, to earn some extra yards.
Last one, Kyle.
Mike, I couldn't get Joe out of his Michigan State pajamas today, so I'm here for us. But wanted to ask you just about what a guy like Logan can take from, or just in general, a guy who takes the long road. What kind of sort of trait he can take from that, or what you as a coach see from that? A guy who even in high school had to fight for his job, in college had to fight for his job, gets drafted, gets cut, works a day job, takes the AFL route, you know, and is bounced around and is still here kind of in the fight. What do you think guys like him take from that or show you from that?
You know, just a perseverance, you know, a mental toughness, a belief in themselves that they can, you know, overcome anything, that there's no quit in them. You know, so there's a lot of good characteristics to be said for that. You know, these guys all know that you're only going to get so many shots in this league, and you got to take advantage of it before it passes you up.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
I've got Arthur on the line, so I'll go ahead and bring him in and we'll get started.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, what's up, Coach? With Darrington Evans and trying to get him in those third down situations, especially like blitz pickup and things like that, how are you able to get a judge on whether or not he's going to be able to protect that investment in Ryan Tannehill?
Well, just by the opportunities and the situations you script and practice, and you try to put him as many situations as you can in a practice setting to get him ready to play. That's the only thing we can do is simulate the best we can out of practice.
And then with Isaiah Wilson, how is he coming along as far as just getting the scheme and executing the blocks that you require him to do?
I mean, he's coming along like most rookies do. They're all at their own pace. That's why you don't compare them to anybody else. There's multiple variables on guys when they're coming along. So just he's been a pretty typical rookie.
Luke?
Hey, Coach, appreciate your time. Curious as to what you see as the challenges when you bring in a veteran backup a week into what's already a short training camp. How do you get him to where he needs to be in terms of knowledge of the playbook, and how quickly is it possible to do that?
It just depends on the guy. I mean, Trevor's been in a few systems. He's got some familiarity with what we're trying to do here. And And so he understands how the profession works and what it takes to play the position. So when he comes in here, I mean, he is drinking from a fire hose, so to speak. You know, we catch him up on the installs, and then he's got his plays in practice, and you prepare him as quick as we can. I mean, these are the things that happen sometimes. I know in 2014, and we were getting late in the season, and we had multiple guys that come in, on a Thursday night game. I mean, so you have to adjust in this league.
Was there something specific that you all saw that led to releasing Cole McDonald just a week into camp? Was there one particular concern or anything like that?
Oh, I don't think it's one particular concern. It's just, Cole's a great kid who's got talent, and he was working hard to change his throwing motion. And, he's coming from a very foreign offense. But Trevor gives us a good opportunity to create some competition for the backup role between him and Logan.
Jim?
Arthur, what have you seen maybe from not kind of the top three, maybe top four, Khalif, Adam, AJ, and Corey? What have you seen from maybe that group behind them as they compete to try to stick?
Yeah, they all have got different skill sets, and they all bring something to the table. There's great competition in there. Those guys, Cam and Cody, Rashard, I mean, those guys, they've all played, and they're all fighting. There's great competition with Khalif. I mean, all those guys.
And one more from me. I know today you worked with a lot of the young guys. How much does a day like that help, and what do you look for in a day like that?
Yeah, it really helps, especially when you have those call-up periods. It's the best you can simulate to put them in some stressful situations that you may not get because of the preseason games. So you're trying to make it as real as possible, or they got to hear the call and get lined up and rescue themselves out there.
Gentry?
Yeah, hey, Arthur. Mike called Corey Davis the best blocking wide receiver you guys have, and I wanted to ask how uniquely valuable that skill would obviously be for any team, but especially for your team.
Yeah, it's something that those guys take a lot of pride in. I mean, we feel that's a big part of our culture, and those guys all are willing. And Corey does a great job, and AJ, I mean, all those guys, they'll get in the mix. And so it definitely adds value, especially to some of the stuff we do on first and second down.
If there's anything, you would want to see out of Corey or what the next level might look like for him, what improvements would you like to see there?
Like all those guys, they all focus on things to work on. And, none of those guys, you can't have the mindset that you've ever arrived. And they, daily we're looking to improve, just as I'm looking to improve as a coach. And so these guys all focus on stuff, and he's done a nice job since he's come back. He continues to work on his craft, and that's all you can ask for.
I got a bunch of questions lined up, so if you could ask your best one, we're going to run out of time in a hurry. So, John?
Hey, Arthur. I wonder if you could talk a little about when it comes to catching a deep pass, what are the most difficult things that are involved in catching a deep pass? Who are some of the better guys you've seen, and how does Khalif Raymond stack up there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge down the field, and some guys are able to track the ball. I mean, just because you separate it, still you got to go out there and execute the catch and be able to track the ball, and it's going to be different every time depending on the coverage when you're pushing the ball down that far. And I just don't like to get in comparisons, but Khalif's got a good skill set. He works on it, and he's come up big in the past. So he's putting in the work. He's continuing to try to improve as well.
Paul?
You could skip me. Thanks, Art.
No problem.
Eric?
Hey, Arthur. We saw Kari Blossomgame getting a lot of carries out there today. Last year we knew him as more of a blocker. I'm just curious what you like about that part of his game, and is his versatility something that sticks out about him?
Absolutely. I mean, we try to pride ourselves on guys that can play multiple roles. Versatility is huge for us. If a guy can do multiple things, you're only, you're limited, as you guys know, on game day. And if you get injuries, you can get thin at certain spots. So it's definitely valuable. The more a guy can do in a role, different roles on game day, the better it is for us.
Buck?
Eric literally just took my question. Sorry, Coach. I'm going to pass.
Steve?
Hey, Art, thanks for doing this again. Last year when the offense really got rolling, you only had a couple of weeks really before Adam Humphries went down with his injury. Having him back fully healthy this year, what does that add to what you can do offensively?
You know, he's another receiver. He's got a good skill set. He's got a knack for getting open. I think he's, you know, him being in our culture for a second season helps. I think he understands expectations and where everybody fits in now. So I'm excited about Adam and really all those guys.
Chris Hurst.
Hey, Art, when we were talking to Trevor yesterday, he mentioned that some of the playbook philosophy he had at one point in Denver was kind of similar to the applications that you guys have here. How do you think that has maybe helped him get up to speed a little quicker? And then also, how can a day like today, where Ryan's not on the field so we can get more reps, help with that?
Yeah, certainly. It certainly helps if you just have recall. I mean, you may not call things the exact same, but there's quicker recall. He's got a base. All right, I've run something similar to this in the past. Okay, we called it here in Denver. And it just helps his learning. It speeds up the learning process and what we're trying to get accomplished. And that's the advantage you have as a veteran and a guy that's played in multiple systems. And then for today, same thing with the rookies. It just allows them to go out there and operate, get the call in the huddle, command the huddle, get them lined up and get us into the right play and handle all of our operation.
Kyle?
Yeah, for a guy like Logan, you know, the reality changed pretty quick. You go from competing with a 7th round rookie for that number 2 job to a veteran and a guy that's played in this league. Since that move, have you noticed anything change about him? Sharper focus or greater intensity or had any conversations with him about that move?
Sure. He understands that's what we want. We want competition. We want to make sure the best man's going to be in position to be the backup. So, no, I mean, Logan does a great job preparing day in and day out. He grinds through it. There's nothing that's going to change him. He understands what the job entails and what the competition is for.
Terry?
Art, what's you think are the biggest couple of things in the development of Jonnu Smith as a pass receiver, especially the last year or two?
A lot of it is experience. Speaking of comparisons, I mean, that was when I used to kind of roll my eyes about when somebody used to compare him to Delaney. I mean, they're two completely different players. They have different skill sets coming out of college. I think on the surface, it was an easy narrative that couldn't have been further from the truth. And that's a hard position to play and what we demand out of that position. So experience certainly helps. And those reps, you get game reps to something you do over and over again.
Joe?
Hey, actually, another question for you, Arthur, about Logan. He's got some experience facing long odds. I mean, how much do you think that serves him now, and he even has kind of helped him get to where he is at this point?
Well, everybody's got a different story and what's got him to this point. He's a very determined guy. He works extremely hard to preparing, and that's what I really appreciate about him. I mean, he's consumed by it, and so again, I think, and I don't want to speak for Logan, but he certainly embraced the opportunity to go try to compete and win a backup spot.
All right, we ran through them all and right on time, so I appreciate your time, Arthur.
Other examples of your perfectionism?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. So, I want to be detailed. We ask these players to be detailed in everything they do. That's the expectation across the board, not only for our guys, but for the coaches, all the way down. So if you're going to do anything, you better do it how you want it and live up to that expectation level with everything. Because how you do, I got a saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's kind of what I live by, and I'm not going to lose sight of all the little things.
Thank you.
Yep.
Teresa?
Shane, how has it been now calling the plays? You had the session on the Friday at the stadium. I saw you doing it some today. Are you getting more comfortable with that? And how is that working through that whole process now that you got 3 weeks before the opener?
Yeah, I mean, Friday I called it at the stadium. I mean, we had a plan going in though as a defensive staff, kind of what we want to work on. And with every play call, there's obviously a bunch of situations that come up throughout the game. Who's in the game for them? What's the down and distance? All that type of stuff. And we go through it pretty thoroughly as a defensive staff, collaboratively, with kind of what we're looking for, what we want run. So I mean, that's been good for me just in terms of that. And then really at practice right now, other than Friday, everything's pretty much been scripted. So we go through that, Braves, myself, the defensive staff. It's the same kind of premise of what we want to see that day. And really, I'm just the relay man in terms of getting it to those guys right now.
Hey, Coach, we had one request. If you could tilt your camera down a little bit, we're only getting half your face on the feed that we're doing. John Glennon? There we go.
All right.
Hey, Shane. I hope you just didn't answer this. My audio is not great. Wondering on Friday how much of the play calling that you did in sort of that unscripted session, how that worked, whether that was Mike telling you to call what plays or whether that was you calling the plays, or was there a mix of that? How did that work?
Yeah, we went into that thing with a plan of what we wanted called, and like I mentioned, just the personnel that we see, who's in the game, the different situations. Like we meet as a staff thoroughly about kind of what we want called in certain situations. So there's a plan laid out for me, and I called it on Friday. Mike had to do all the situations, just spotting the ball and everything else. He had a bunch of other stuff to kind of handle to make sure that thing could operate. But we had a plan in place, and I was the man calling it into Rashawn and Jayon. But at the same time, like there's only so many calls for each situation, especially right now with what we're doing install-wise, what we want to get ran.
Did you find, did you enjoy the experience? Is that kind of still a step forward for you in that regard? And how do you think that you felt?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I felt comfortable up there doing it. I'd done it before in practice at times, in a couple preseason games, so I've had experience doing it. But anytime you take on somewhat of a new role in that situation where I've just been next to Dean or doing the personnel or whatever it might be, like it's just something a little bit new for me. But I felt comfortable. Again, there's a great defensive staff here in terms of our collaboration and our plan and what we're trying to get accomplished. So going in, and there's great guys to kind of lean off of. Obviously, Jim's done it a really long time too. So, it was good. It was good.
There we go, Clark.
Shane, I'm curious, does the role you guys envision for Vic Beasley make it any easier or harder for him to make up the time he's missed? And are we at sort of a critical point on the calendar with him yet?
Yeah, I think as he gets back, it's just going to be really how much he can handle, I think it would be unfair of us to say, here's the entire defense, go out there and execute it. We got to kind of pick and choose where we're going to need him and where we need to emphasize kind of his progress in terms of learning early on, and then kind of see where it goes. But I don't think it'd be fair to him to say, hey, here's everything we do. Like, you've got to know it all and go execute it. We're going to have to kind of protect them and massage them into it a little bit.
Teron?
Yeah, getting back to the collaboration side of things, how big is having a guy like Coach Haslett there, and what does his experience, what value does that bring to you as a guy who's going to be calling some plays?
Yeah, it's great. Just like Dean last year, those guys have seen it all. From all ends of the spectrum, the good, the bad. They got different ways of doing pretty much everything. So just being able to bounce ideas off him, all those different little things that come into it, situational stuff that comes into play. It's always good to have somebody you can turn to that's kind of experienced it, whether it's good or bad, to give some insight.
Jim?
Shane, on Vic, what are some things you can do with him now where you can make sure he's as up to speed as possible when he is ready to go physically? What are some things you've been doing with him?
Yeah, I mean, we've been meeting. He's in all the meetings. I mean, we're not losing sight, obviously, in the training room first and foremost to make sure he's getting where he needs to be. But he's been in all the meetings. We've had extra time with him just during special teams meetings. We steal that time too. So there's been a lot of opportunities to kind of go through that, put things up in some form or fashion, create a version of a walkthrough in our meeting room with him, so to speak. So, I mean, we're trying to be creative to where he can actually see it and line up rather than just looking at a piece of paper. But, I mean, he's learning. I feel like he's getting more comfortable with what we're asking of those guys.
Terry?
Shane, how much prior experience at previous stops in your coaching career have you been involved in calling the plays? And in those stops, what kind of things did you take away from it maybe that you can apply here?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been involved, obviously, in the game planning aspect in terms of what I said earlier with situations, what calls we like in certain situations against different personnel groups, all of that. I mean, in terms of calling the plays, I've done a little bit here and there at Kennesaw State, same type of situation, really just with practices, scrimmages, some of that type of stuff going on there. I think the main thing, and we'll see where this thing goes, like, I mean, I'm not dead set on calling plays, just so you guys know, like it's a work in progress. We're working through it, me and Mike and everybody. And I think the main thing is just being comfortable and being able to get in a routine and just staying ahead of the game with it as it goes.
Paul?
Was watching DeAndre Walker yesterday, who's mostly in 2-point, Shane, but then he a couple times went into 4-point. I was wondering if you could talk through what you ask of the guys that jump to the line as outside linebackers from 2-point to 3-point to 4-point. What do you ask of them? What do they get out of those three?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a comfort level with a lot of these guys. They've been in a 3-point probably throughout their college career. Then we're coming in here and we're asking them to stand up. I mean, a lot of things go into that. It's comfort level, it's the defense, it's what they're going to be asked to do on certain plays comes into play. But ultimately, like if they want to get down a 3-point, it's more comfortable to them and they're able to execute the defense. Like I'm not opposed to it. It's more or less a comfort level for those guys. And then ultimately 3rd down, like it is what it is. Like they can make that stance to go left. But for 2nd down, just what we ask those guys to do in certain situations. I mean, it is, they just got to make sure they have a good feel for being able to do their job and whatever they decide.
Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Buck?
Yeah, Coach, staying with Walker, he seems to be the beneficiary of those snaps without Vic and Correa available for the majority of camp to this point. Where have you seen him grow specifically? He said he's approaching every day like he's still a rookie and he still has those moments. Where are you seeing him grow?
Yeah, I think for him, I think his understanding of defense has improved dramatically. I think now it's more just the little nuances that he sees within every play, a certain split, a certain stance, some of those things. And ultimately for him, it's just the consistency with the technique. Like he's a big, strong kid, and he's able to get away with some stuff that most guys aren't because he's got some lower body strength and some stuff to him. And it's just really him realizing what it could potentially be if he's more consistent with technique at the point of attack, play, and then play out. But I mean, I've been impressed with him overall. I think he's done a good job executing the defense. He's getting valuable reps, like you said. I think he's improving. He's just got to keep going and be able to do it day in and day out and keep going, keep finding one thing to get better at each day.
Thanks, Coach. We ran through all the questions, so appreciate your time.
Yep.
how do you try to, what are you doing to help prepare them and find those guys?
Yeah, one of the big things I think that we're doing to help out this situation, because we're not getting them in preseason games, is we're trying to put them in as many competitive drills that we can find. Not that we're adding stuff to practice, but having it be more competitive and getting them in situations, game-like type situations where they got to go down there and run, play in space and things like that. So we're trying to do as much stuff in practice to simulate the game for special teams as we can.
Jim?
Hey, Craig, good to see you. I know it's still early, but how would you say the kicking competition is going so far? And it's another situation where how difficult is it going to be where you're not going to have games to judge them off of?
Yeah, I would say the kicking situation is been very competitive. They're being consistent, which has been great to see. They're pushing each other, and it's kind of fun to see those guys really talking to one another and helping each other out. But as of right now, it's been neck and neck, and these guys have been doing a great job competing against each other, and it's been fun to watch. It is going to be a little bit different because it is not a game-like situation, but we're still trying to do things in practice to make it those game-like situations where it could be a hurry-up field goal at the end of the half or at the end of the game, or even just trying to put pressure on those guys, whether it's the guys over on the other side yelling, whether it's us doing some different things. We're trying to put as much pressure on those guys because they won't get that in the preseason games.
John Glenn?
Hey, Craig, I'm going to ask you, how many guys typically do you think are sort of special teams standouts, special teams specialists on a roster? And does that change at all this year with the a bit more expanded roster on game day?
Yeah, it's different for every team. That's the big thing. You got to go through your roster and see the guys that you can play that are going to help your team win. And whether it's offense or defense or maybe one or two extra special teams guys, we're going to have guys on the active roster that are going to help us win. And if it happens to be a couple extra special teams guys, that's what we're going to do. But I think that's a huge part. If we get to add some guys, obviously the one's going to be an offensive lineman, but that extra spot could be for a special teams player. And, I think we're doing a good job of telling those guys that, yeah, you got to play offense and defense, but there could be an extra spot on special teams if you can excel in there.
David?
Craig, as good as Brett Kern was last year, how nitpicky did you have to get in terms of identifying things for him to work on this offseason?
Yeah, it's tough. But obviously we hold Brett to a very high standard here. And, he's going to be his own worst critic. I might point things out here and there just to nitpick, because obviously he's done a real good job these past couple years and throughout his career. But, any little detail that we can help him out with as coaches, he's all for it. But, he's going to make his own corrections. He's going to know when he mishits a ball, and we're going to talk about it. And, he takes one step the wrong way or an inch here or there, he's going to know about it. He's hard on himself, but it's good. So, yeah, we had to come up with a few things to try to nitpick on. But he handles it, and he takes coaching and goes out there and tries to improve every day.
Teron?
Yeah, what's up, Coach? For your returners, punt returners specifically, what are some ideas that you've come up with to be able to simulate those situations where, you have the gunners running down and they're trying to catch that punt in the midst of those guys bearing down on them? How do you rep that? Like, what are some ideas that you've come up with?
Yeah, one of the things that I think we did pretty well as far as, what we've come up with is we want to try to put as much pressure on those guys that are catching punts. And whether we got to get 3 or 4 guys around him when he goes and catches it, we'll do that. And not like they're getting the total live look as a punt returner, but if we can get guys that are in front of him all the time, he's got to come up and make contested catches, whether it's with the gunners or just a coach or the other returners that are back there helping him out. We want to try to do those different things to help him make those contested catches where he's just looking at the ball and he's not worried about what's going around him.
Luke?
Hey, Craig, when you're coaching your punt returners, how do you handle helping them to find the balance between the need to advance the ball and help the offense? A lot of guys have talked about that you all like to have sort of the 10-yard rule of getting first down versus field the ball cleanly, don't make a mistake, and just making sure the offense gets the ball.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing that we tell our returners is we've got to attain possession of the football no matter what. And if we can get 10 yards, that's great. But the most important thing is to give our offense the ball or get them a first down afterwards. We really harp on that with those guys. We want them to come up and catch everything cleanly. And if they don't feel comfortable, we'll make a call to let those guys know that we can't come up and catch it. But we want to make sure when it comes down to it, whether it's a fair catch or we catch the ball and run for 10 yards, that we maintain possession of the football.
Terry?
Craig, with 16 practice squad spots now, and obviously the uncertainty of the COVID that could take somebody out at any time, have you guys had any discussions about maybe stashing an extra kicker on the practice squad just in case?
We've discussed many things, and I think you always got to look at different ways because of what's going on right now, and you have no idea what can happen at any point in time. And those are really things for our general manager and Ryan Cowden too. Those guys will talk about all that stuff. And Coach Vrabel, they'll end up talking about what's best for our roster and how we're going to do things. But, I'm sure everything's being discussed and talked about just because of the unknown that could happen at any point in time. So, we'll always be looking and evaluating people to see what's going on.
David?
Craig, back to the idea of core special teams players. How much easier is your job being with an organization that'll bring in a DeZubner, a Chris Milton, in recent years, Darren Bates, and devote roster spots to those guys?
Yeah. I feel blessed being a part of an organization who, really put an emphasis on special teams. And when you get guys like Nick, Chris Milton, guys like that who have done a really good job in the past on special teams, it's going to make my job easier of having those guys that really understand their role and they accept their role and they're going to excel in it. And then, they're leaders too, because they'll talk to the young guys, they'll talk to other guys that are going to be involved in it. And we're lucky enough too to have veteran players who are even starters who will play on special teams. And once you get core special teams players and you get veterans to buy in that they might have some type of role during the game, it just makes our job a lot easier with that. But, I do feel lucky that we put a major emphasis on special teams and getting players to understand their role.
All right, Coach, we ran through all the questions. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank
Thank you, Craig.